What's up, John Sonmez here from SimpleProgrammer.com. Got my creepy face on in the dark. I'm in the Tuscany region in Italy still, and had a bit of a late day, so recording my videos a little bit late tonight. But I thought I would do a book review since I just finished a book that I've been waiting to read for a while. It's really hard to get a good lighting in here, but it's a book that I've been waiting for a while to read. Let me see. Oh, you know what? Hey. There we go. Well, okay, that's better. Anyway, it's a book that I've been waiting to read for a while. It is called The Goal. You can check it out here. And I actually got the audio version of this book. It's kind of funny because I avoided reading this book for a while because I thought that it was a book about setting your goals. So I figured it was a very kind of like practical, pragmatic book, and then I would need to have a paper version of it or a Kindle version so that I could, work along with it and not listen to it like a story. Turns out the book is actually a story. So the audio version actually works out pretty well. So this is an interesting book, not a book that I like I said, I had the wrong impression. It was a book that was recommended so many times that I said, well, I should probably read this book because it's so highly recommended. So many people had recommended it, but I didn't really stop to think or find out what it's about. And sometimes I do that, right? I'd rather read a good book because people have recommended it than a bad book because I read the intro and thought it was interesting. You see what I'm saying? Like, so, because I only have so much time on this earth, and this is kind of funny because, how many books can you read in your lifetime? I read 2 to 3 books a week. Typically, maybe let's say 2 books a week. So maybe, in a year, maybe I can read let's say somewhere between 50 and 100 books. That's not a lot of books compared to how many are out there. And so if you think about it, right, you gotta be kind of pretty careful about it. You should definitely be reading all the time, but you gotta be careful which books you read because you only got, I don't know. Let's say that you're reading 50 books a year, right? In 10 years, that's 500 books. How many years are you reading books for that the knowledge is actually going to be beneficial to you, right? Maybe like 50 years, so it's like 2,500 books maybe you could read. That's not a lot. It's really not a lot. No, compared to how many millions of books there are out there, right? And if you just compile the list of some of the best books, right, that you'd probably be in the tens and 20,000. So yeah, you got to be pretty selective. And if you're only reading like 10 books a year or less, man, yeah, gosh, good luck reading the right books, right? So I'm pretty selective, which, by the way, that's one reason to subscribe if you haven't subscribed to this channel, because when I do the reviews on here, they're usually filtered lists, right? I'm being pretty conscientious about my time, about what books I'm reading, so I'm only reading good books. They're highly recommended, and then you can go through my reviews of the books and decide if you want to read them. So you can check out the whole playlist here on all the book reviews I've done. I pretty much every time I read a book now, I do a review on it. And just so you know, my reviews aren't like typical book reviews. It's like, what do I think about the book, right? It's not necessarily a summary. Sometimes it is, but it's mostly just what's my impression. Did I like it? Did I not? And just thoughts I've had after reading the book. So there you go. So anyway, what is this book about? The Goal. Like I said, I didn't realize that it was a story. I didn't even realize what the book was about. It's essentially a story about a dude that runs a factory. His name isn't Joe, and it's not a button factory, but he runs a factory and it's having some problems. And so he goes through this process of figuring out how to improve the flow, the throughput of the factory. It's essentially a manufacturing book about lean process, basically Kanban. Lean process, essentially, the process that was developed at Toyota that a lot of actually applies a lot to software development. So I think it's actually a pretty good book for software developers to read because then you can kind of understand what actually lean is and how it actually applies to manufacturing, as opposed to the kind of bullshit that we've heard in a lot of the agile, Scrum, Kanban stuff here, which is, it's good. It's good to follow a good process, but like if you don't understand how it works in manufacturing, then you probably don't understand how it really works. Like, what is the purpose of doing all this stuff? Like, what is the purpose of small batch sizes and figuring out bottlenecks in your system and limiting the WIP or work in progress, right? So the really interesting thing about this book that I found So that's actually quite an interesting story. I mean, the dude even like has these problems with his wife because he's working too long, too many hours, and she leaves him and leaves the kids, and it's kind of, I mean, this is like, where'd that come from out of this book? But it makes it more interesting, right? And this is a great way to teach, right? Anytime you can tell a story and you get people like involved, and it's like, I'm listening to essentially a book about manufacturing improvements, but it's got drama and it's interesting, and so I can see why this book is so highly recommended. So I'm not sure how I'm going to apply this book to my life. I'm thinking, I got to think about some of the processes. I mean, this applies to any process, right? Any process that you're doing. I can probably take a lot of processes as a simple programmer and think about how they're kind of manufacturing, right? Maybe how I'm making videos, right? And what are the bottlenecks, and how can I improve that, and how can I batch sizing, I guess, for batching videos. Does it make sense, right? Actually, it seems like what I've been doing is probably the best thing, which is to not batch up a bunch of videos at a time, but to have an even flow, right? So I can actually get critical videos out as well, right, if I want to do time-sensitive videos. So that's kind of interesting. But I don't know if it'll have too much of a big application, but I think for software developers, anyone in manufacturing, man, there's some lightning like crazy out here. I don't think I can really show you, unless it happens to strike at the moment that I turn this camera, but it's pretty crazy. Tuscany is really interesting. It's cold out here right now. Like the other day, it was like, I was standing out here at about the same time at night, and it was like 85 degrees, and now it's Fahrenheit. It's cold now. So, and the sky's just being completely lit up by lightning. But anyway, what was I gonna say? So yeah, so it's a good book. I think it's a really good book. I like the format. It was entertaining all the way. I wanted to keep on listening to it, and I did. And it was I think I put it on, a lot of books I read on 3x speed on Audible. For a lot of this, I was at 2x speed, just because there were some complicated concepts to get, and I didn't want to miss them. So I wanted to make sure I absorbed all the book. That's one thing also, I'll say to you guys, because a lot of you listen to my videos, you listen to me reading books at 3x speed on Audible and stuff, while I'm running or working out and stuff. And I have to say like two things. One of them is that it's important that you understand the book. So if you have to drop it down to 1x speed, if you have to drop it down to half x speed, do that. That's more important than getting through it super fast. Gosh, I want to capture this lightning. It's so cool. But that's the more important thing. And then what else was I saying? Oh, and then the other thing is also, while you're working out or something, like if you're doing weightlifting, I find that I have to drop the speed a little bit. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to focus, because running is fine. Like my mind is blank. I'm just running, right? Unless I'm trying to navigate somewhere. But if I'm lifting weights and stuff, then it is a little bit more complicated. So, all right, that's all I got for you. It's a very short book review, I think, that half of the video didn't even talk about the book, but it's a good book. I check it out if you can. Click the subscribe button to not miss any videos, and make sure that you click the bell so you don't miss the videos, so you get a little ding whenever they come out. I guess Eli the computer guy left YouTube because his subscribers weren't seeing when his videos came out, but I think we could solve this by just clicking the bell. So all right, talk to you next time. Take care.